Hello and welcome to Health Talk. I'm Dr. Manny. Some people can't stop thinking about money. I'm one of them. But did you know that your genes actually play a big part in how to make financial decisions? My guest today traveled to 25 countries to study the history of money and found some unique links to our health as well. Kabir Sehgal is here. He's the author of the New York Times bestseller, Coined: The Rich Life of Money and How History Has Shaped Us. Thank you. Fascinating book.
Thank you.
Money, genes, and health, all in one book.
That's right.
Why did you write this book?
I wrote this book because I started working on Wall Street just a few months before the credit crisis, and people were acting so irrationally with money. And I said, what's going on in people's minds and brains when they deal with money? And so I looked at the relationship between the brain and money.
What's the role of genes? Because I mean, that's a pretty far-fetched. In other words, I think what you're trying to say is that there's some genetic predisposition to act a certain way around money, right?
That's right. And researchers have found that identical twins invest in a similar manner. Think about that. Identical twins have the same genotype, they have the same genes, and they followed them over many years, and they made them, make investment decisions to put money in stocks, bonds, currencies, and what did they found? They found identical twins invest in a similar manner. So it shows that genes, they concluded that genes are constantly trying to express themselves through financial decision making.
I always think of how people handle money sometimes as culturally. If there are countries, for instance, where you have more of a, I don't care so much about money, I care about being happy. There are countries where I don't care about being happy, I care about being rich. But what do you say about that?
Well, it depends where you go. Almost everywhere I went in my 25 countries, people think about money as a measurement of debt, right? And there's very quirky cultural ways of how people express themselves. When you're in Japan, for example, when you give a gift to someone, they say, arigato. That means this is too difficult for me to accept it. When you go to a Japanese wedding, for example, and you tie that ribbon on a present, if it's not tied perfectly, it's too loose, you may be implying that the marriage may not last. So there's all these cultural quirks. In fact, this is called the gift economy. Even on Wall Street, there's one Wall Street CEO, he keeps a list in his breast pocket of people who owe him something. So there's always an idea, whatever country you go to, they're always thinking about gifts and how money is really an obligation.
So can I use your book to better understand, let's say, my genetic predisposition and make myself a better investor or evaluate where I am financially today?
Sure. Well, even in terms of your personal spending behavior, they found that maybe 17% of your credit score is driven by your genes. How did they find this? They found that there's one gene we all have, and there's two variants of it evenly dispersed within the population. If you have one variant of it, you're more likely to be risk averse, have higher credit scores, have fewer credit lines. If you have the other variant of it, it's just the opposite. So credit scores go between 300 and 850. 97 points they found were driven by your genes. So imagine when you get your credit score in the future, there may be a little list that says, how does this person spending, how do we expect their spending to be based on their genes, and how did it deviate from their expected behavior?
All right, so all right, fine. So now I need to give me some tips that I can use to, I don't know, improve my credit score. Let's say I happen to have that gene, where I have low scores and I'm adverse to taking risk, right?
Right.
And I need to change.
Sure.
Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to pay for my kids' college tuition. So give me some tips that I could say, okay, this is who I am, but I'm going to try to change.
Well, in the study I talk about in this book, not everyone acted according to their genes. So it is possible to triumph over your genes. How do you do that? Through education. One of the best ways to get a sense of your spending is to make lists, to visualize your spending, and to make goals. If you're more likely to be risk averse, like you should, put some money into a discretionary account so that you're more willing to spend that money. So you should make lists and visualize your expenses. Every online banking account, you can now color code how you spend your money. It's important to use these online tools to basically go against or triumph over our genes.
And doctors have scanned brains when people invest, right?
That's right.
And what did they find?
They found a few things. They found that when they've compared the brain scans of people who are high on cocaine and people who are making money, they find they're identical. In fact, they've found that when they scan the brains of people, men who look at naked bodies and women and money, What gets the most excitement?
Money?
You got it.
No kidding.
That's right.
I wouldn't have guessed that one. And that brings me to this point. Hormones, testosterone, can play a role in, I guess, in your, financial decision making and your behavior. How does that work?
That's right. Well, in my book, I talk about testosterone, and they've scanned they analyzed the DNA, the swabs of traders in the London trading pit and also on Wall Street. And what do they find? During periods of market volatility, people are acting with a lot more testosterone. And so they found that they correlated testosterone levels in traders with markets. And then they thought, well, maybe there's causation. So they started injecting people with testosterone nasal sprays, and they found that sure enough, after you take the nasal spray, you take more financial risks. So testosterone can, when you're reading the markets are up or down every day, maybe it's just an aggregate level of testosterone.
So are women more savvy investors then?
They're a lot more savvy in financial decision making. They can often be more detached and analyze numbers in a sensible way.
I'm going to let my wife run my money. Wait, she does already. And the last thing that I want to talk about is sort of all of this also could make you unhealthy. And if this whole thing with your financial needs and everything, that also could turn into a negative effect, right, on your health.
That's right. Well, one of the most public safety hazards is paper money. On paper money, they found 3,000 different microbes: DNA, staph infections, pneumonia. There's 1.5 billion DNA markers on money circulating through New York City. 50% of them were non-human. Dogs, horses, Dr. Manny, even traces of white rhinoceros were found on currency in Manhattan.
All right, so we're going digital, I guess.
Wash your hands.
Thank you. That's fascinating information. So where can people get more info on your book?
Coinbook.com.
And it's available everywhere?
Everywhere.
All right, well, thank you. Very fascinating. Genes, there, explains a lot in my life, for sure. And if you have a health question, you can send them here at drmanny@foxnews.com. Until next time, I'm Dr. Manny.